the Author's Lounge. My name is Paulette Henson, and I am super excited to welcome my guest today, Akiya Maston. Miss Akiya, welcome. How are you?
I'm fabulous, Miss Henson. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you. So today, let's talk about your book. First of all, I want to let our audience know that Akiya has appeared on the cover of BWA magazine with her first book, and she has written actually two additional books, and they're sort of focused around middle school kids, which she has a lot of experience about as she's a principal of a middle school. Is that correct?
A kindergarten through eighth grade. So yes, I have.
Okay, so
Yep,
yeah, so you're
all of it.
covering that whole range of children, as they develop, and it gets difficult, in that middle part. So go ahead and tell us about your books and let our audience know a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. Hi everyone, Akiya Maston. I am excited to be here. This is my 20th year. I think that's a long time. This is my 20th year in education, and
Wow.
I've seen the gamut. I've worked from pre-K all the way through 12th grade, and I can't say I've seen it all, but I've seen quite a bit during my
Yes.
time, and all of the different age groups and levels. And I love every age group has its great joys as well as its great
Yes.
challenges.
Yes.
And the I'm at a K through 8 school right now, which I have the best of both worlds, elementary and middle school.
Yes.
But the demographic that I've noticed in my my years in education was middle school students. They seem to have the greatest challenges in multiple facets, and in particularly middle school girls. So that's why I'm here today to talk about the books that I wrote to help that target group with finding their voice and being successful during those critical years.
Yes, yes. Okay, wow. So, tell me the title of the second book, the second and
Sure,
third book. We'll talk about that
sure.
one today.
Okay, so the title is The Sleepover That Went Oh So Terribly Wrong. So is that the title says it all.
Yeah.
It's a book about two best friends, and they got invited to a popular girls' sleepover.
Okay.
And what could go wrong absolutely went wrong. They go on this wild and crazy adventure. The book ties into those critical aspects of confidence, self identity. Who are you during this critical period? Right, your popularity. You're trying to fit in. What should you say? What shouldn't you
Yeah.
say? What should you do? And so
Hmm.
they go to the popular girl sleepover, and it actually turns into a game of truth or dare that leads them on the greatest adventure of their lives. And so the story starts from it's a great, I don't want to say too much for anyone who wants to read the book, but
Yes,
the story
yes.
starts from the main character, actually it's named after myself, Akiya, the main character having those self-doubts, looking in the
Yes.
mirror, not quite thinking that she's pretty enough or popular enough or is enough, right? And
Yes.
so she goes
Yes.
into the sleepover already harboring those feelings. But what happens during this, she at the end of it, she finds her voice. She
Yes.
finds that she is braver than she thinks. And when she
Yes.
looks in that mirror at the end of the story, it's validation of, you know what, that was who she was from the beginning. She just
Wow.
didn't see it in
Didn't
herself.
see it.
So
Right.
it's a beautiful story of ups and downs. You're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh. So it's so much fun to write.
Wow, wow. You know what, as you're talking, it does. It brings back memories. I would think that for anyone reading it, it's gonna, especially if you're older, you're gonna be thinking about those times when you were in middle school and, the challenges that you may have had. I mean, I was just thinking about that too, and so it's it's something that to help, the younger kids coming up, because in my opinion, they're going through even more than what we went through because of the social media aspect and the
So true.
phones and all that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up because the book takes place in the 80s.
Oh,
So it doesn't take place now. It takes
yeah,
place in the 80s. So there
yes.
is no social media, there is no cell phones, but it's really the same struggles, right? It
Yeah,
just looks a little bit, it's packaged differently today.
right, right.
And but it's really all the same. So as I was writing this book, I was drawing from my past experiences, and half
Yes.
of the book is actually true. I was not popular in school, and anyway, I wasn't unpopular. I was kind of like in the middle of the road.
Okay,
People knew me,
okay.
but I wasn't in the in crowd.
Right, right.
And I had a best friend, and we get invited to this popular girl sleepover. And
Uh-huh.
I just remember, so I took those feelings that I had and infused that within this book. We didn't
Yeah.
have nearly the adventure these two in the story had, but that was a great foundation to start off with.
Right, right. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. You know, I commend you for writing a book, like this, because again, I think that the girls today, they're faced with those challenges, but
Yeah,
they don't really talk. They're in their phones, and and all of that, and everything is texting. So the expression part, the verbal expression, is
yes,
not there, so to speak. It's all internal. And
right.
so, right, and it's like to recognize that this is something really important. As we know, these are critical times for them, because the next leg of it, it's the adulthood, and and they just go on from there. But wow, amazing.
And
So tell me, well, you said that you are one of the characters, so I would assume that you can relate to your own character more so than your best friend. Is that correct?
yes, I can. And then, so when I was on your podcast, my goodness, probably a year or two ago.
Uh-huh.
This book was about my life, the 1 years of middle school, and my best friend was infused in this a nonfiction book to help of success stories to help students. So I took
Yes.
those nonfiction characters and created a
Mhm.
fictional version. But you're absolutely correct. I took who I was really at that age and then just related it to the story. And so I'm gonna share like the last scene of the story. Akiya, the main character, writes in her diary because we had diaries back then, right? And just
Yes.
captivating. And so
Right.
it's a diary entry. But prior to that, she stares in the mirror, and she's essentially looking at the person that she became. And I'm just going to read you a couple of sentences. It says, it was at that moment when she realized this version of herself existed all along. It just took a traumatic experience to help her see that. Her mom
Yeah.
always says problems can either make us bitter or better, and that choice is ours. And that phrase never rang truer to her more than now. And so she's looking at herself and she's realizing, yes, we may have had problems. Yes, we may have had struggles. But who did you become in the process? So this
Right.
book is infused with a lot of, I call them momisms. So
Yes.
those phrases that my mom taught me growing up, such
Yes.
as association makes assimilation. Who you hang out with is who you become. So choose your
Right.
friends wisely, right?
Right. Right.
And it's just so yes, this character is fully me. This character would do everything I would do. So all the mistakes I would have made at 12 years old, I made in this book. But I'm proud of who I became in the process.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. I love it because it's going to help so many parents and kids, that read it. Because when you're parenting, sometimes you just don't know what to do in a moment, and so
Right.
to have something like that, that you're reading along and you can say, "Oh, okay." It helps you to maybe understand the kids a little bit better, and what they're doing. Um, so let's see. Another question. Okay, so what about peer pressure? Is there anything about peer pressure in the book?
The whole book is peer pressure. So, I would say the whole book, 90% of the
Okay,
book. So,
okay.
the first couple of, so let me just give you a little background. So there's a student in the book called a purple unicorn. So the first chapter starts with Akiya being bored in class, and this girl walks in and she's eyeing this girl up and down, thinking, oh, maybe this girl and I can be really good friends, right? Invite into my friend group with Jennifer. But as soon as
Okay.
that girl sat down, she saw the boys in the back of the classroom, like looking at this new girl, whispering and smiling and things like that. And she's like, well, what's going on, And then the teacher says, oh, why don't you help? Her name is Jay in the book. Why don't you, the teacher says, why don't you walk Jay around, show her the classes? And the kid's like, great, I will. And during the hallway, all the popular girls are smiling and waving and all. And then Akiya finds out, oh my gosh, this girl is a purple unicorn eventually. And purple unicorns are popular girls, but they're nice to everybody. And they're smart
Yeah.
and they're intelligent. So they don't fit that stereotype of, what the movies project popular girls to be. So she was kind and
Right.
sweet and wanted to hang out with me, but yet she was in a whole other universe at school. Right. And so,
Yeah.
but they eventually become friends. So outside of school, they hung out all the time as a trio. Inside of school, there was this divide that they never crossed. Right. And so the purple unicorn, Jay, invites us to that sleepover with all her popular friends. And the main character is called the Queen Bee. And the Queen Bee
Okay.
and all her wannabes were there. And so she saw, so it's not just Akiya's character developing, she started seeing cracks in the purple unicorn as well. She started to see cracks in Jay of
Mm-hmm.
the person that she thought was so confident, had it going on and popular and nice and kind and smart and pretty, everything Akiya wanted to be.
Right.
And the
Right.
Queen Bee brought her down a couple of notches. So she was like,
Oh,
wow, she didn't think that was possible, right?
wow. Yeah.
And yeah, and then my best friend Jennifer, same thing. So Jennifer now is trying to prove herself of, oh, I'm not who you think I am. I'm gonna do a truth. I'm gonna just for truth or dare, I'm gonna go with the truth. And this truth sends them into these haunted woods,
Wow.
and it was insane. But afterwards she started to figure out, popularity is not what it's cracked up to be, first of all. But not only
Right.
that, peer pressure is real.
Yeah.
And that whole night she was trying, she did things she didn't want to do to fit in. So every
Yeah.
single time something was suggested, she will follow the crowd, and it took a little piece of her away. And then she would do
Yeah.
something else to follow the crowd, and it chipped a little bit of who she was away. And so by the
Yeah.
time they make it into these woods, it was like, who is she anymore? Right? But it was in
Wow.
those woods where she started to, with Jennifer. They were in there together because Akiya, of course, Akiya could not leave her by herself.
Right.
So in those woods is when she discovered, she put her foot down and was like, no, this is it, we're done. And
Yeah.
so, and I think that's that's part of life. The more you go through, it can either make you bitter or better, like my mom said. It can either
Yeah.
harden you, right,
Yeah.
tough
Yeah. It
experience,
can.
or it
Yeah.
can soften you where you just
Yeah.
crumble and be fragile, or it can really chip away at who you were meant to be becoming. So
Yeah.
it's not just Akiya that goes through that adventure of peer pressure and who she is, but every character in this book, except for the queen
Wow.
bees and their wannabes. They didn't quite make it. The other three
Yeah.
main characters did.
Wow. Wow. Well, it sounds like that. there's a lot of like conflict and lessons learned within the
Yes.
book, which is awesome because again, life is lifing, and with kids, they are always looking to explore, and the peer pressure pops in, and they want to be a part of something, whether it's
Yes.
the in
Mhm.
crowd or they want to be a part of something. And so it's good that that touches on that because it's about choices, which,
Right.
as you go through life, you have to make choices. It may not be the same type of scenario, but, you know, the situations change as you grow, right? So that
Absolutely.
is amazing. Wow. So it sounds like you really enjoyed writing this book. That it took you along the journey of the little girl of Akiya, your own
Yes.
personal self, and that's always fun too because it makes you laugh and, like you said, cry, and it's going to resonate to the people that read the book because I can feel, what you put so much into it.
Yes. I put a lot into it. And I have to tell you, like I love all the books that I've written, but I this is by far the most that resonated with me the most. And I've read this book after I wrote it. I read it like countless times because I just really enjoyed reading it. It was, to me, it's still a
Yes.
page turner, even though I read it. So,
Uh-huh.
um,
Yes.
I am going to share this story with you. So, there was a student at my other school before I transferred to this one. It was an elementary school. This student was an avid reader. Every single time I saw her, she had a book in her hand. At
Uh-huh.
lunch, she was reading a book. Coming into the school, she was reading a book. Leaving the school, she was reading a book. And this was right after I wrote the book. And I'm like, I'm going to give her my book, And so
Yes. Yes.
I I asked her parents, I said, it's okay if I give, her my book. I think she'd enjoy reading it. And then they were like, of course. So I gave her my book. She read it in one night. It's not as you can see, it's not like a long read.
Okay.
She jumped out of the car the next day and ran up to me and gave me the biggest hug. And she
Wow.
said, and I kid you not, and I don't want to say this because I don't want to say this to puff myself up, but it was a moment where it stayed with me and it just validated what I thought the book was. She said, Miss Maston, that is the best book I ever read. And I looked at her, I'm like, stop. Because people like, stop. Like you don't have to tell me that. Like we're good. Like you don't have to tell me that. I was like, she's like, no, Miss Maston, I'm serious. This is the best book I've ever read. And she started naming the scenes and the chapters that really
Wow.
resonated with her the most. And I'm like, are you see? She's like, yes. And then she wrote me this long letter, and I should have pulled it out for this interview. The long letter and drew me a picture of what it meant to her. And I'm like, wow, that was validation for me of I have something pretty good that I think a
Yes.
lot of not just young
Yes.
girls, but young people and even parents, because this takes you back to the
Yes.
80s, right? So there's a lot of
Yes.
80s references. You have the music and culture references are in here, and
Yes.
it's yeah.
Amazing.
I'm excited to have a lot more people to read it. It was a lot of fun to read and write.
Wow. Wow. So how long did it take you to write the book? When
It
did you
took me a
start?
year. It
Okay.
took me a year. And it's
Okay.
interesting. I typically start writing around now when I write a book now, and then I finish it like a year. It's always, I don't know, summer and around April is when I start writing my books. I don't know why that time
Yeah.
frame. But it took me a year. I took my time with it. I don't ever want to rush the process just to get something out.
Yes.
I've had probably about 35 drafts. So this wasn't something that I wrote in a day. I'm like, oh, it's good. No, I kept going back and I kept going back. And every single time I got the book and I read it again, like, no, I want to change it. So I just kept making changes.
I
And
love
it's to the
that. Yeah.
point where it's like, Akiya, you're done. Put the book down and walk away. Otherwise, the more I grow as a person, the more I'm gonna infuse that piece of me into this book. And then it's
Yes.
like essentially the never ending book. And I don't want that. I have to learn to let it go. So I let it go. and it is what it is. I will never put another pen to this book again. Um, but the piece that I add, the one of the last pieces I added was the journal entries. I wanted the book to end with her really um, putting her heart out there and being vulnerable. And
Yes.
so, and of course, there's like crushes and boys throughout the book because when you're in middle school, you have those little crushes and everything. So I had to
Yes.
infuse a little bit of that, but it's so much fun.
Oh, I love it. And I love the journal part of that. Is now that's a separate, you have a journal entry, a separate book that accompanies that one, or
The
is it two?
journals, the journal entry that Akiya wrote is in the book, but I
Okay.
did write, I wrote another book. So the proof came in. So it says not for sale. The proof did come in. Um, but this is called the GPS code.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
GPS code is a book that highlights those 8 challenges that I see girls, and this is for girls, and GPS means girls pursuing success. So it's a GPS
Okay.
code. And
Love
if
that.
you can see on the mountain, each stage of the mountain covers each portion of the book. So it starts with confidence and it ends with leadership because confidence is the foundation of everything, right? And
Yes.
so so this is it's like a workbook. Um, and it starts off with confidence, as you can see. So it talks about the barriers to confidence. Um, it has, this is the chapter on self-worth. And
Yeah.
after every chapter has a little letter from me relating to me regarding self-worth,
Okay.
related to me regarding confidence or things that I've seen as I've gone through in education. And so this
Yes.
book tackles confidence, self worth, healthy friendships, goal setting, having a growth mindset, courage and resistance, body and health, and then leadership. And there's different activities and there's journal writing in these books as well. So
I love.
it's a guide for and a whole bunch of activities that girls can do with their parents. So it's not
Oh,
just a
nice.
workbook for a young lady just do on their own. This is really a guide for the whole family to help these young ladies on their journey. And this
Yeah.
also took me a year to write. Oh, I'm sorry. In fact, not this one didn't take me a year. This one was an accidental book. I didn't know I wrote
Oh,
the book until December. I was creating PowerPoint presentations, and then I was reading the PowerPoints. I'm like, this is a book. So I turned the PowerPoint into a book, and here it is. So I discovered it was a book like
wow.
back in October, and I started in the
Yeah.
summer, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm good.
Yes. I
I'm
love
so
that.
excited.
So for you authors, hey, there's an idea right there. If presentations, those are the main points, right? And then you just expand from that. Wow. I love
Yes.
that. I
Thank you
love
so
that.
much.
You are so inspiring, to anyone. I mean, people writing children's books, um, there is a special layer to that because it can be your own story, but it's going to help so many kids, so many
Yes.
kids. And in this day and age, they need help, they really do. So I totally commend you. I love the journal entries. I think that um, personalizes the book for the reader, where they can jot little things down, or write
Yes.
their thoughts. That really connects with the reader in so many ways, and they can go back to that and read that. When they reach those times of where they're in a decision making scenario.
Oh
So
yeah, and it talks about that, and it dives into uh friendships, for instance, and working in working well, I work in both elementary and middle, but working more of in the middle school side, friendships is probably the most reason why students are in my office,
Mm,
meaning I'm no longer friends with this person. Now they're talking about me. This
right,
person said this about social media. We used to be best friends. This, you know,
right.
and so it goes into that friendship. So a whole chapter is dedicated to friendships. It's dedicated to gossiping. You
Yeah.
know, and
Mm,
in it, and so I
yeah.
have those little tidbits. And one thing I've learned, the book talks about that you have three names other than yourself: Bennett, Les, and Paul. My name is
Yeah.
Bennett. I ain't in it. My name is
Right.
Les. I ain't in the mess. My name is
Right.
Paul. That's between y'all. So it talks about
Right.
not getting involved in that drama and owning your own truth
Right.
and going your own path. And that's
Yeah.
what a lot of girls, in particular, are stuck in is, you know, who are they? Who am I without this person? Right? And I'm like,
Right.
you're
Right. They
perfectly
lose their
you.
identity. Yeah,
They
they
lose
lose
their
their
identity
identity. Mm-hmm.
to try to fit
Wow.
in to this group that they're all worried about themselves, you know,
Right.
and we often think
Exactly.
everyone's thinking about us. I'm like, no one's thinking about you. Everyone's thinking about themselves, right? But
Exactly.
we get into this like, oh, everyone's thinking this. They have people ain't paying you no mind. You're a blip on their radar because everyone's so
Exactly.
focused on their own development, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So be your own person, and it has, you know, how to, not only that, but you know, how to make new friends, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Um,
Right.
because there are some girls, and particularly, I mean, because boys and girls, but obviously this is geared towards girls who haven't made those friendship connections,
Right.
right? Because they
Right.
may be shy, or
Right.
maybe they've had bad experiences in the past, or
Yes.
maybe they never stay in one location longer than another location, right?
Right.
And so they don't want to form those bonds and those
And
connections.
they know that.
Um,
Yeah.
Maybe they feel they're not worthy of friendship, right?
Yeah.
And so the book dives into all of that,
Wow.
as well as if you have friends, what can you do to bring
Right.
other people into your circle, right? So if you have the
Exactly.
gift of that purple unicorn gift, right? If you have it, make it work. Bring other girls in, have them straighten up their crown. And so
That's
I
great.
love it. Yeah. A lot
Wow.
of fun to write.
I love that. And so your books are available on Amazon, right?
Yes.
And
So
you have a website?
I do. So I created a
Okay.
company called
Nice.
GPS Girls, or GPS Girls Pursuing Success. And the
Yeah.
website is gpsgirls.com. And
Nice.
all my books are on there. And I'm also going to create mentoring groups as well, like online mentoring groups. So that's the next phase. And but my
Nice.
books are on Amazon.com. The GPS code will be available in about a week. But the
Okay.
1 years of middle school and the sleepover that went oh so terribly wrong is on there. And I'm hoping that this has a huge impact on helping girls discover their own self-worth, and they are perfect just the way they are, and they don't have to live up to that social media hype of what beauty is,
Right.
um, of what
Right.
talent is, you
Yes.
know. And the book talks about those filters
Yes.
that, you know, you see everybody's, you know, you think is every what, you know, what everybody is, but you, first of all, you don't see what went on behind the scenes to get there,
Exactly. To
right?
get there.
um
Exactly.
right. So all these books I wrote, like, oh, you just write books like that. I'm like, okay, these are nights, these are weekends, this is waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, this is missing out on dinner, this is not doing laundry, this is that, this is that, this, there's a lot of sacrifices that
Oh,
goes
yes.
that's involved, which I'm sure you know, that's involved in
Yeah.
these books. It's not like you wake up and like
No,
but
it's
also
not. It's
people,
a lot of
yeah, go ahead.
sacrifice. Yes. It no,
Yeah.
it's a lot of sacrifice. I totally agree with you. Go ahead and say what you were gonna say.
No, but then people, you know, but they see everyone's, oh, they're so beautiful and they're so great. But there's a lot of filters also on social media. But these young girls are looking up to what they feel the idea of beauty is. But it's
Yes.
not real,
No,
right? And
it's
then
not.
but we're all beautiful. We're all,
Yes.
every single one of us, we're all
Yeah.
beautiful. We make different
Yeah.
standards of beauty, we're all beautiful. And so that's one of the chapters is health is it says body and health. So yes, it talks about nutrition and getting enough sleep and drinking water and meditating and all those things that we know. But it also
Yes.
talks about being okay and fine and good with who you are right now. You don't have to live
Amen.
up to this ideal. You're perfect
No.
just the way you are.
Yes. Wow. I love that. Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that. So, any closing words? I think that what you just said was a great close, but just anything that you want to tell, a parent of a middle school child or auntie or grandparent or even a middle school child watching, what would you say to that person or to those people, in getting your book? Because to me, it's hands down, it's there's not really any guides that we can relate to, that will have that has that just explanation of the different categories, like you said, leadership and being confident and all of those, and really, pull someone into that. So, expand on that for me, just for as we close.
Sure. Um, what I would say to the parents and the guardians, this book is for you. This guide is a roadmap, and it does talk about is for parents and guardians as well as the students. And so, if you're gonna notice a difference in your student. Before it used to be sixth grade, what happened to my child? Now it's fourth grade, what happened to my child?
Hmm.
Girls are experiencing um, this little bit of a disconnect um, with their identity, like who am I really? At a younger
Yes.
age than before. And so I want to share
Hmm.
this with the parents is that you are not alone. Our
Yes.
middle school, we have a guidance counselor. She has a girls group of fifth graders, and the fifth graders are going through exactly what we're going through. And she's like, "Oh my gosh!" So I gave her obviously, I was like, "Can you read this? Make sure I'm touching on every point." And she's like, "I'm okay, great." So yeah, I'll give you the book because her girls group talks about this. So a lot of so it starts earlier. But you're not
Yes.
alone. I think that's oftentimes parents think, oh, what's going on with my child? No, this is normal. What your
Yes.
student is going through is normal, right?
Hmm.
It may have a different degree. The book
Right.
also talks about if it's a little bit too much, then obviously you do want to seek outside resources beyond the school. If you feel your daughter or your niece or your granddaughter may need extra support.
Yes.
Um, but this is a great guide for even those girls who are doing extremely well, who already have that confidence, who are already flourishing. This is still a great guide because it dives a little bit deeper into that, into
Mhm.
discovering or creating those foundational skills that's going to help them later on. And then what I
Right.
would say to those girls, again, you are not alone. After each letter that I write, I put hugs. You can see it. Hugs, Miss Maston,
Uh-huh.
because I love you all. Hugs, Miss Maston. I wrote this book with my heart and love for every single young girl. That is my passion because I think I was, I think I was when I was one. So I could relate totally.
Yes.
So if you want those skills to help you grow, this is a great book and you're not alone, but you have your parents, you have your friends, you have your
Yes.
school, you have a ton of support um, to help you become who you are capable of becoming. And one of my favorite quotes in this book says, confidence is left when you stop pretending to be less than who you are.
Wow. Wow. I love that. Wow. That's great. That is awesome. So
Thank you
when are
so much.
your workshops gonna start? You said you're gonna have like a online workshop. Please keep me in the loop so I can share with the
I would
audience in
love
case
to.
there's anyone else. Yes,
That's going to
because
start in the summer. I will keep you posted. I want to get these fifth graders going into sixth grade ready, prepared
yes,
for middle
ready.
school. This book talks about goal setting, which is crucial for academics,
Yes,
not just
it
social emotional,
is.
but academics. You got to set those goals.
Yes.
Um, and so this summer, so I'll definitely let you know. And I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on and share what I'm so passionate about. And I'm hoping these books and resources can be a tremendous impact for our young people today.
Amen. Amen to that. Thank you so much. This has been such an enrichment for, for all of us because we all know kids, kids in elementary and middle school, and they are older than, their actual age. They're
Yes,
far more advanced, and they're, all of that stuff is real, and I won't call it stuff, emotions, and all of that triggers, it can trigger the schoolwork, like you said, the
absolutely.
academic, and you wonder why aren't they doing so well in school? They could be having some sort of emotional conflict or something going on with some other kids that they're not talking about. And so this
Yes.
is really a gateway to help you as a parent or a guardian to make that connection if you don't know what to do, because if you are just confronting them, they're not going to say anything. At least, my kids, I mean, if I confront them, like, tell me they're not going to say it. And,
Right.
they have to feel, they have to work through it in their mind and feel okay to talk about it. But at least this kind of, it bridges that gap. So I appreciate you so
Beautifully
much.
said. Beautifully
Thank
said. Definitely a bridge.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you, Miss Henson.
it is. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, get this book. You can go to Akiya's website. Give us the website address again.
Sure, it's GPS, like Girls
G-
Pursuing Success, gpsgirls.com. Once again, gpsgirls.com. I have digital downloads. So if you're like, you know what, I don't want to spend out, money on Amazon, then obviously downloads are a little bit, less expensive. So just go on and just do a digital download, and the book is right there within a second. If you want a hard
Oh,
copy, Amazon.com. And I
yes.
am incredibly excited to get this book in young ladies' hands one way or another. Also, I am available for speaking engagements. So I do keynote speaking. I do
Nice.
book panels. I do book reviews. So you better believe that I'm doing novel studies at my own school based on these books because I'm getting
Yes.
it out there. And I
Yes.
started a girls' step team here as well, and
Nice.
we're infusing these principles into the step team also. So I'm like, if I have a group of 30 girls, I'm not only going to step with them, but we're also going to take these principles. So I'm, as you can tell, I love what I'm doing, and it's going to be
Yeah.
good for your daughter.
Yes, awesome. Yes, your passion is loud and clear. It is definitely loud and clear. So thank you again for being on the Authors Lounge.
Of
Remember,
course.
you guys, get this book. You can go to the website gpsgirls.com and get a digital download right now if you can't wait for Amazon. But we're going to close off today, and we will see you on the next episode of the Author's Lounge. Bye bye.